European and Western art. In our class so far, we've looked particularly at the early modern period. Again, in class, we've been talking about how to really talk about this period. Should we call it the late medieval period, which I'm not comfortable with? Should we call it the Mughal period, which I'm also not comfortable with, because there were so many different traditions. And so we're really using kind of John Richard's notion of the early modern period, which in India has many similarities actually with the West. And so I feel comfortable with this periodization. So this said, I'd like to now introduce Professor Bauze, who is one of the most eminent art historians of our time. He has given a number of lectures so far. He's particularly interested in wall paintings, miniature paintings. He's given wonderful lectures on Bundi, on Kota, a fascinating lecture on the Firangi theme in Rajput art, which is, as you know now, very much along these lines that we are interested in. And I'm particularly grateful that he is always using the themes of our research at the center as a starting point for to share his own research of many decades and a number of fascinating images that he has collected over the years. So many of the images you'll see, I think, are unpublished. So thank you very much for being here, and welcome again to all.
Professor Schmidt, ladies and gentlemen, good evening or good afternoon. It's almost 2:40 in the UK or 2:30 in Germany. Can I have the first slide? Oh yeah, okay. This one. Okay, and is the presentation good? So everybody sees just this, yes, and not the rest. Okay. 25 years ago, I had been in Lucknow the second time, and I was in search of fate, the fate of monuments, and this did not escape the office of the Times of India magazine. So they invited me to an interview, and about this, the Lucknow Times reported on 6 April 1998. Okay, I see it there only now. Rosie Cleveland Jones is also mentioned there, and this one, does the audience see? Able to see this? They also see my finger on, not the audience here, the audience in the internet. Yes, they can from this. Okay, well, you will see this building later, and you will see also why this painting is being shown. And okay, where I changed the? Oh, it is. It is there. Okay. The lower part of the title page of the Lucknow Times is shown here, and there's some of the text of my interview. And on top you see photographs which I collected from a book, which was edited, written, and photographed by a Lucknow photographer, Daroga Abbas Ali. But before we come to that, I would like to introduce one monument, which is called the Qadam-i-Rasul, or short Qadam Rasul, which means the footprint of the messenger, or the footprint of the prophet. It was built under Ghazi-ud-Din Haidar Shah, who reigned between 1814 and 1827. And the interesting thing is, it houses a footprint of the prophet, and it is a very Indian thing. It is not only Islamic, it's international. Remember the Dome of the Rock in Israel, or remember the Vishnupad temple in Gaya. And This photograph, by the way, is by a photographer we will see, we will hear about him later by, sorry. By an Italian gentleman. Now, this is the photograph by Daroga Abbas Ali of about 1873. The title Daroga actually means something like police officer. And he has published this book. No, I see it much better. He has published this in 1874. He was the next. Here you see the title page on the left, and on the right you see a photographic carte de visite showing a so-called Tawaif, about whom we shall see more later. Maybe I can, yeah. You see the pointer here. Later he became the pensioned municipal engineer. Okay, we're at the press now here. This is how this monument looks today. That means 25 years ago. You see, for comparison, the two people passing by. There is no chance of seeing any interior design because it's about to collapse sooner or later. A detail from the first photograph by the famous photographer Felice Beato, taken in about May 1858. These are some of the earliest, not the earliest, but some of the earliest photographs taken in Lucknow. Here you see the hill on which the monument is built. And here you see what is called the Shah Najaf. The Shah Najaf was built for Ghaziuddin Haidar Shah for the internment of his own remains, as it is called by Abbas Ali. And well, we have heard about his the duration of his life. And here it is again in a different view by Felice Beato. And we have a wall, which I want to point out here. And since this is an unmounted photograph, we have an inscription on the back saying the Shah Najaf, the first attack of Sir Colin Campbell in November 1867. Well, who was Colin Campbell? This is an excerpt from a book written by Stan Nielsen and published in 1992. And it is on the only European or Western artist who was present during the so-called mutiny or First War for Independence. His name was Egon Selef Lundgren, 1815 to 1875. And he was there, royal command, to paint people and incidents of the mutiny. And if you read the text, I don't read it because it takes so much time. Lundgren received photographs through Colin Campbell and Henry Hope Crelock, etc., of Felice Beato, 61 in number. And this is important to know because here you see a photograph called General Mansfield and Lord Clyde, in a book of which I will show you the title page later. And it was reportedly created after a painting done by this Swedish artist Egon Lundgren. However, if you look at this photograph by Felice Beato, you realize it is not based on a painting. It is based on a photograph by Beato. So how reliable are the information given by the paintings we ascribe to Lundgren. Here you see the frontispiece and the title page of a book published 1860 by William Howard Russell, who was Times correspondent, and it shows the yes, but this was shown also before. No, it's okay. It's absolutely correct. This is the title page and the frontispiece.
It's just something the participant has enabled closed caption. You just need to press on the X. The IT person, please too.
On the X. Well, in very busy universities, we have the classrooms which are permanently booked. And apparently this is why we couldn't do a rehearsal on time. I hope you bear with us. Yes, I have no other chance. No, this is not my PowerPoint. Are all problems solved now? Okay, now this is the title page. As you see, it's published in 1860. And this William Howard Russell was a very important person because he later accompanied the Prince of Wales on his tour to India. And not only the Prince of Wales, but only the Duke of Edinburgh, who went to India much earlier than his elder brother. Well, Egon Lundgren, he is mentioned as being the source of this painting, the relief of Lucknow, which was done by a gentleman called Baker.
Okay, it's Thomas Barker.
And this gentleman Baker did a painting called The Relief of Lucknow and Triumphant Meeting of Havelock, Outram, and Sir Colin Campbell. It's quite large, it's 105 centimeters by 181 centimeters. And it's very often published, so I don't want to talk more about this. This, however, is almost in the same size, a woodcut. And it is not any woodcut. I mean, if you go to the Mutiny Museum in the residency of Lucknow itself, you see it twice there on the walls, but 25 years ago, I was not allowed to photograph it. But what I present you here is a copy which is signed by the gentleman Baker himself. So it is the actually proof copy on which all subsequent prints are based. The interesting thing is the painting was shown, for instance, in Los Angeles, but what was not shown is this key plate. And the so-called key plate says that it's all based on the drawings by Mr. Egon Lundgren. But as we have seen, and I could show you many more examples, in fact, it was more Felice Beato who did the work rather than Egon Lundgren. If we have a comparison here, you see all the important people which are mentioned in the engraving. at times better even than in the painting. And here, next to this sort of solar topi or helmet, you have a map, and written on it is map of Lucknow. This Henry Havelock, he is still remembered in Lucknow. His tomb was photographed by Abbas Ali on the left, where you still have a kind of baluster or balustrade around it. And this is how it looked 25 years ago. The sort of fence has disappeared. What is interesting, Felice Beato identified more than 60 people who were in Lucknow during the time of the so-called uprising. He also photographed what is called sipahis or sepoys. However, they are mentioned without names. They are just some sepoys from many. All the Britishers were mentioned by name, but the Indian fighters who fought for the British, they were not remembered by name. So back we go to the Shah Najaf. What I want to show is this wall, which was used as a defense wall by the so-called mutineers or freedom fighters. Here we have a photograph by Shah Najaf, of the Shah Najaf by Abbas Ali from about 1873 to 1874. And it was a very often photographed monument here by Clifton and Co. Bombay around 1900. It is even signed. And the only thing is that the outer defensive wall, what in the so-called mutiny became the defensive wall, today has somewhat disappeared without a trace. I couldn't see it. Maybe now it's reconstructed, but when I saw it 25 and 26 years ago, it wasn't there. So this is a corner of this great monument. And when you are inside, the corner looks like that. And when you are in the first sort of corridor, you have the funerary chamber, but they are blocked by these curtains. I didn't dare to go behind, not to disturb people mourning there. And how people are mourning was, for me, not accustomed to this, very drastic, because people banged their head against the wall that it spilled blood. And they did not do it once, they did it many times. And you heard the boom, boom, and I couldn't believe this sort of self-suffering. So I did not want to take photographs. And but what you see are these lamps. What is interesting, each of these, what we later will see, the so-called imambaras, they are full of these lamps. And you will realize, or please see these lamps with these pumpkin-shaped glass. And you must ask, well, where are they coming from? Those lanterns in the shape of pumpkins were in all likelihood produced in Belgium as a comparison with a found in a dusty continental household shows. What has happened again? The photograph was quite okay for me. Yes. Can we go back there? So I have just written what is incised there in the glass. So these lamps came actually from Belgium. It's a long story about Val-Saint-Lambert. It's a factory which was created in a forlorn, forgotten abbey. And another thing I wanted to say, that these fittings They are old. These fittings there are later made. These fittings here and there, as a gentleman who knows much more about this than I do, told me they were manufactured and imported from Germany. So the fittings were German and the crystal glass was from Belgium. We have more lamps. These are probably also from Belgium, these. And these lamps here, they have somehow an Italian touch from Murano or any of these places. Here you see a view towards the ceiling. This ventilator here, this fan, of course, is a later addition. But what is old is the fact that here, for instance, a photograph again by Abbas Ali, the Dargah Hazrat Abbas, a mosque built by Nawab Saadat Khan between 1798 and 1814. Interesting thing is that you have also here, already at that time, that means in 1873, at the latest 1874, these type of lamps. I hope it was visible. Now we come to a monument, again photographed by Felice Beato, which, as the inscription below says, is called the Martinière. The Martinière is quite a French word, and it's based on a French gentleman. This is a detail, and we'll hear about it more. The problem was when I told the taxiwala that I want to go to the Martinière, he didn't know at all what it is because my pronunciation was wrong. In Lucknow, it was called Martinia. Oh, you want to go to the Martinia? Yes, sir. And this shows it from a distance together with the so-called lat. And another photograph by another very important gentleman, Samuel Bone, who lived from 1834 to 1912, photographed this in early 1866. It is signed and catalogued, etc. I can give you precise information on each of these photographs, but in order to save some time, we have to hurry a bit. We can do this later, I hope. This is another photograph by an apparently formerly Prussian photographer called John Sachet, who was previously called Sachert, Johann Edward Sachert from Prussia, 1824 to 1882. And he photographed there also early in the early 1870s. And the interesting thing is his chariot there, which would his chariot which transported his tent for the studio to develop the plates is seen here. What you don't see is a dam. In the meantime, the government in Lucknow built a dam that you cannot see anymore directly from this lat, which is apparently a later construction, because we have a painting by the Indian artist Sita Ram, who has done a painting, we will see Sita Ram's paintings later, who has done a painting in 1819, which is now in the British Library, where this pillar is under a scaffolding. So maybe it was renovated or maybe also done later. Here we have this photograph by Abbas Ali, and to the left and to the right, how it looked from the dam on which I'm standing. We have so many other photographers like V.E. Pont. We don't know what the initials are standing for. It's signed here with a number. V.E. Pont's photographs are quite rare, but he must have done this in the early 70s. And again, the Martinière, or the Martinière, as it's called today, I mean, previously it was called differently, as we will see later, without the dam or barrage. And since in 1840, there was a school which was founded in there, the so-called boys' school. Here in this photograph, you see quite a few British boys, which was taken by Francis Fritt and Company, probably in the mid-1870s. And we have a kind of repetition of this. And here on the top, you see the British flag. You have from Clifton from around 1900, another photograph, which is also called La Martiniere, Lucknow, and Clifton and Company from Bombay. Now, at the monument itself, there's an inscription which tells a story about Claude Martin, who was born in Lyon, so 1873 and 75, and who died there in September in 1800 in Lucknow. And he was buried in his own house and building. And as such, it is one of the greatest pieces of European funeral, or greatest pieces of antique funerary architecture in India, because it's not only a big castle, as you may say, it's also a tomb. And due to this, it has the statues. Here you see the dam, which now separates the view from the so-called Lat to the Martinia. You will see the real name later. And here how it looks from a distance. I don't know why the dam was made, because the river there, the Gumti, it never contains so much water, but maybe it was for some reason. This is the shadow of the Lat. We are standing on the dam, and this is the huge extension. I mean, this is a nucleus, and later on they added further buildings. One of the major points of attraction in those days was to visit the tomb chamber of the gentleman who is buried there and who founded this. This is how it looks inside. Probably the ceiling was painted blue. There are many birds and many bats, and it's but you see, this is how it is. This is nature. And here you see it from the side. This was one of the first monuments which was sort of looted by the so-called mutineers or freedom fighters. They have removed the body of Claude Martin. Here you see a bust of Claude Martin. Later they added also a chapel, and this is here in memory of Claude Martin. So these are all additions made after his demise. Here again, you see the large basic on which this was constructed. Here the canons have inscriptions saying that they were actually cast during the lifetime of Claude Martin. Now here you see the old title, Labore et Constantia. This was the old title, which means something like through hard work and perseverance. It's a Latin word or Latin phrase, and this was the old name of the monument, Constantia. As you can see here, the name as it's called today, Martinia, etc., that's considerably later. Now we are inside, and as some of you may know, it has recently been renovated inside. There are photographs published, which I saw very recently. Today it looks all very different, but this was the state of affairs 25 years ago. And here you see, so to say, sorry, the coat of arms of Claude Martin, and here you see this kind of fake columns or pilasters and very European shapes, and also all the rest you see is what you can see in European castles done in the 18th and even late 17th century. But in European castles, all this was more or less gilded. And here you have figures made of plaster which was applied. It's not, the identification of all these figures is not clear. I would say this is Demeter, the goddess, the lady who for the harvest, because she has all the fruits here which she carries. And these figures were used in many, many places of the interior. Here you see a ceiling as it looked 25 years ago. I haven't seen the photographs as it looks now, how it's now being renovated. But I guess all this as a brown color tries to mention, so to say, was originally gilded, at least in European castles, it's gilded. And how old this lamp is, I cannot say. And here you see more from this applied work in plaster. This could be seen on any wall in the province of Brandenburg in Prussia from the 17th century onwards. And here again, the same figure, which I hope it goes, the same figure here, used in a different surrounding, and also this lady. Usually, if Demeter is shown, the other lady who is shown is Diana, because she is hunting, and she supplies the meat, and she supplies the fruit. But it's not. This was not the case here. Here you see an upper part of the wall, and different figures, and this, what I think originally was probably gilded. Now we have large freestanding figures, and the interesting thing is they survived all these bombardments by the freedom fighters and by the British. They are all still there, and behind the already Samuel Bohn has taken a similar photograph. Behind you have this wonderful garden, of which I could show you many, many photographs, but we wouldn't have the time to see this extremely well-kept garden. Now, another monument, we have seen it on the title page of the Lucknow Times, the so-called Dilkusha Koti, or the Heart's Delight, photographed also by Felice Beato in 1858. And it's, of course, something like a British country house. This part is the same when you go to the back, and this part is the same when you go to this place. Also, there we have similar views, but showing a completely different state of affairs without these strange toppings here on these four pavilions, supplied by Sitaram again, where this is flat, but we will see more images. Here again, the original inscription, the Dilkusha Palace, so-and-so attacked by Colin Campbell, etc., etc. We know how Colin Campbell looked like. We have seen it in this painting. Now, this is a painting or a lithograph based on a painting by Egon Self Lundgren or Lundgren, the Swedish artist who was there, and his cupolas look entirely different. So, whom can we trust? I say in this case the photograph and not the artist. Whereas we will see Sitaram was a very good observer, Indian artist. This is a photograph by Samuel Bohn, who has taken the back or the front. I mean, it in a way all looks same. Bohn catalog number 1149. And then the Dilkusha, as we had seen it on the front page already, photographed by Abbas Ali. It's a so-called hunting box or country seat built by Saadat Ali Khan, etc., etc. Just we have to take up some time. This is how the Dilkusha looks today, or in 98 in May. So the stairs here are still there, but all the rest is in quite a different shape. This doesn't change anything if you go to the side. This is a more, let's say, more neglected monument. But in the light of the sun in the evening, it still looks quite attractive. Now, this is one of the most interesting monuments, because this is not only the most reliable photograph, but it's probably also one of the best photographs and one of the very, very few photographs. It is what is called the Musabak. It is not in the catalogue of Henry Herring, who published prints of views of Felice Beato and sold them in London. It is not in his list. So it's a comparatively rare photograph. The Musabak Koti, whatever Musabak means, it can mean monsieur or whatever. In British times, it was called the Barrowine, was built under the supervision of Azam ud-Dawla for Nawab Saadat Ali Khan, 1798 to 1814. We have heard about it between 1803 and 1804, and served as a country seat or country retreat. It was here reportedly, I couldn't verify it, some authors say it, that here the famous animal fights, which are described in lots of more or less contemporary descriptions of Lucknow, including the fights of rhinoceros, that these fights took place here. I can't show you any later photograph, because this is how it looks today. It has almost vanished, apart from these two cupolas with these pavilions. And it's all the fields are around, the people are plowing the fields around, and they're harvesting. And this is what remains from this Barrowine. You have these pavilions here in one row. You have here the comparison for the size. And again, what you have is a pattern which you now from, let's say, Central European and British palaces. And this is the inside, which looks like loopholes, but these are not loopholes, these are very large oval-shaped openings. And it seems that there was an underground compartment, probably for the heat. Here are these double columns, which were also used, as you know, in Mughal architecture. But here there are different basics at these columns, and the capitals are also not Mughal. They are more or less very strongly influenced by European architecture. Here, something like something which could be a Corinthian capital. And here you see it better. One of the few places where you can expect how it once looked like. Now, this is the watercolor of the Rumi Darwaza and the distant view of the great Imambara. This is a Suneri Burj, but this we don't see. This is the so-called Roman gate, Rumi Darwaza. And here is a masjid, which is the masjid of this gigantic structure. And this is the Imambara of the founder, the so-called Bara Imambara or Great Imambara. And this painting was produced for Lord Moira, afterwards the Marquess of Hastings, by Sitaram between 1814 and 1815. And the Marquess of Hastings was then the governor of Bengal and the commander-in-chief between 1813 and 1823. And he asked his artist Sitaram, who was active between 1810 and 1822, we have even a painting showing him at work, to illustrate his journey from Calcutta to Delhi between 1814 and 1815. And most of these paintings today are partly quite recently acquired by the British Library through Jerry Patrick Lusty. We will see this for comparison. Now, this is a photograph by Felice Beato, And it shows, after all these bombardments and shellings, what remained of the normal houses. They are all in ruins. Here is the Rumi Darwaza, this gate. And here is the masjid, which was also painted by Sitaram. And here behind this building is the Asfi, or from Asaf ud-Dawla, Asfi Imambara, this huge structure. And this is the first gate, so to say. There is a second gate. No, sorry, this is the first gate, this is the second gate. And this photograph was taken by Samuel Bohm from the so-called Jawab, or correspondence, in the back of the first gate. You know the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is famous because there's a masjid, but the masjid, the mosque, is not alone. On the other side, on the western side, you have the Jawab, the reply, the answer. Looks exactly like the masjid, but it has no prayer niches. So you can tell immediately what is the masjid and what is it. Formerly it was called guest house. And now this is a photograph which was used for a very interesting publication for the cover, or photographs on Lucknow, which was again done by Clifton. We had seen a photograph again. And this is here, this huge monument. This monument, as you may think, was not necessarily taken during the mutiny, because we have all these piles of cannonballs. Now, Abbas Ali says it was in a bad condition, and until the mid-1870s, it was used as armory. So the Britishers used to store their ammunition there. You see all the cannonballs. But why I show you this photograph is not because of that, because see these the basis of this Shia masjid. And here is a ramp leading you to the well, where you can wash your feet before entering the mosque, of course. And it's for a real ritual sense. And here again, you see it. It's covered by an awning. And see this. I don't know how far you could go inside. If there were rooms, more rooms than that, I don't know. That's a photograph by Abbas Ali, published 1874. And this is Abbas Ali showing the principal building of Nawab Asaf Dawla's Imambara. To see it from the back, as you wish, enormous building here. See a person standing. And this is how it looks today, why I show this photograph. Well, see this massive structure of steps, staircase. There were underground chambers before, but to bring in all the earth, to have a basic for all these steps, it has a completely different appeal as it had before. And now this way goes to the Bara Imambara. Of course, some pieces of construction have disappeared. Only the well, which was visible in the early photograph, that is still there. Now looking back from the Imambara to the first gate, this would be the second courtyard if we count from the other direction. Here is the Rumi Darwaza, here is Aurangzeb's mosque, Lakshman Kila, etc., etc. But this is not the topic today. And here you see the well. Here you see this massive construction of something in staircase and steps. And here this wonderful building, built on the basic of bricks, no iron rods or something. And here we see the first corridor. There are wonderful ground plans by Nita Das, she has written a book, which lots of ground plans and illustrations on the Lucknow Imambaras. Here you have different lamps. These are not the same lamps you have seen previously, but it's even more interesting if you cross these gates Here another view, and we can go inside further, and there it looks like that. Anita Das very rightly said it's one of the few monuments which was built for Nawab Asaf-ud-Dawla, who reigned between 1775 and 1797. And he has requested an architect by Kifayat Ullah in 1784, but this is all known facts. And here is his tomb. This is the tomb of Asaf-ud-Dawla. And see these candle holders, because now I'm showing you a painting by Sitaram. And Sitaram has very rightly done these same openings, and the same candle holders are staying here, as are visible there. And there are certain ceremonies which are only held in imambaras and not in mosques. And not in other maqbaras. So an imambara is really something special for this type of religion. And this is how it looks today. It hasn't changed much. And we will see the same sort of fluted arches spanning over these roundels. And there you don't see the European plaster pilasters. There is very little of European influence. Even the ceiling, this is an Islamic construction of which the English word is called squinch nets. When you go in the Taj Mosque, etc., all the construction, that means the construction from the perpendicular wall to the cupola. How has it been done? Through the squinch nets. It's a special constructions, which, another monument, because we don't have that much time, which is another Imambara, the Husainabad Imambara. And the Husainabad Imambara photographed, the photograph is by Bone, but it doesn't show the Husainabad Imambara. It shows the entrance to the complex of the Husainabad Imambara. And a painting by Samuel Bone. And the interesting thing is, there are these sellers of sugar canes. And these sellers of sugar canes, they are indicated it must be an early photograph, because in the later photographs, sugar canes are no more being sold. And here a photograph from the so-called Fritz series, which must be quite early. The Fritz catalog were not published before 1873. It's the earliest one I found. And here you have the so-called ghost images. That means the exposure time was long. That it didn't capture the figure in full, but in many states. And here are the sugar canes. Here, the first gate of the Husainabad Imambara, as photographed by Abbas Ali, of course, and the sugarcane sellers are no longer there. And then later photographers, meanwhile, we have a dispensary there and selling narcotics and medicals, etc. Why I show this is because this sort of Tripolia is only one gate. It's actually much bigger. We should not forget these two subsidiary towers with golden or gilded cupolas. And when I said in the introductory text, which is was probably seen on the social media, I said that Lucknow was compared to Dresden by Bishop Heber, who said this in 1828 in the 2 volumes, which lots of his illustrations. And he had these cupolas in mind because Dresden in those days looked like that, because before it was reduced to ashes in February 19. Yeah, there's something else, 45. So this is the gate, the gateway to the Imambara complex. And behind us, we have the Jawab. I don't know if I have the photograph of the Jawab now. I must have left this. This is the gateway, and in the center, you have the Husainabad Imambara. This is the gateway from inside the compound of the Imambara. And here you have, for instance, these three objects which have an Islamic meaning, not a Hindu meaning, by the way. And more details will show you. Again, we have a type of tripolia with a very interesting thing, which is a weather pane, or how is, sorry, the exact English word for it. No, I mean this object. If the wind comes from the snout, from the direction of the snout of this fish, then the snout tells you the direction of the wind. I think it's called weather pane, but I'm not really sure. But today it doesn't move anymore. We see a detail. But here we see one of the few freestanding figures. You will see it's a European woman. After all, we had seen at the Constantia or Martinia so many freestanding figures, but they did not influence the architecture of Lucknow at all. This is the only thing which could have been influenced by it. I'm not sure. So here you see this, and today there is a bulb which is, of course, gives red light in the evening, but this avoids the freedom of turning of this fish. Here you see it's a European woman in a European dress. The dress in Lucknow, we will see several ladies of Lucknow in their real dress, but that dress is never shown. Now, the interesting thing is, with the Imambara in the back, you have here a tomb, a real tomb, reportedly imitating the Taj Mahal. And here you have the Jawab of the tomb, not only the Jawab of an entrance, the Jawab of a masjid, but you have also the Jawab or replica of the tomb. The interesting thing is that the Jawab was built more intricately than the actual tomb. And why I'm showing this? Well, here there were several figures. Here was a horseman, almost life-size horse with a groom, and others. Why I'm showing this, I will show you later. This is from photograph from the main gate. We will see this very soon. And here is the actual tomb, the masjid, which is not in the same line, because the direction to Mecca is not really east. So they had to make a special spare place to accommodate the tomb mosque. And this is how it looks when you stand below. See here all the chatras, or umbrellas on top, which were very, very typical for the architecture of Lucknow, because there's a chata manzil and all this, but we cannot see it. Now here, I hope it's recognizable, it's a photograph by Shepard and Robertson. So about 1863, because it's in the catalog and normally it's signed, but here we have only the number. Here is the groom with the horse. And there are other figures here, sort of guardian figures, guarding the access to this bridge. And here is a cow and a calf, probably not a bronze, probably in stone or in marble. And this is where it was. I don't know to which museum they were transported. I haven't seen it in Lucknow. Maybe Rosie Levins-Jones knows about their present whereabouts. as I said, here were figures and here were figures, but as such, they are no longer there. Here the Jama Masjid, of course, but we don't have time to see it. And the other thing is that the lush vegetation, which was on either side here, on either side, also has disappeared. This has given way to British shortcut grass or lawn. But we have these sort of utpalas, we have these water lilies, which are quite amazing. And here again, we have lamps, but the lamps are not the same. They're all different lamps. I guess the floor was made later, but what intricate are all these lamps? This type of lamps we have seen earlier, but not these, what would be called the chandeliers. And lots of chandeliers. And also here, they are not the same pillars or pilasters that you would have in the normal palaces, where they followed a more European styled example. Now here again, we have the tomb, Hussein, and the candle holders, and also very important, real mirrors. Not what you know from Shish Mahal. No, you really see reflection, mirrors everywhere, so to say. And here we see some more of these wonderful chandeliers and candle holders. And here you see the atmosphere, how the light is being immersed when you look outside, and similar lamps we had seen earlier. And by the way, these lamps are all clean. They are not as dusty as in this household where I photographed them. So somebody takes care of them, it means. But now we have a portrait of Nawab Nasiruddin Haidar, 1827 to 1837, as preserved in the picture gallery of Lucknow, left, and a contemporary painting showing Nasiruddin Haidar with his minister Wazir Mutamed Uddawla Aga Mir in the Qudsiya Mahal. So they are all inscriptions here. We can't see them, but they are English inscriptions. This is a minister. This is a Nawab. And here, in contrast to the Husainabad pilasters, you see again this type of pilasters you have seen in the Barawin or Musabad. You will see here, of course, the fish, which was part of the emblem, or even call it coat of arms of the Oud of Lucknow. And here, these lamps, these were all crystal parts, and the candles were inside. Nasiruddin Haidar was known for his apparently he liked to be surrounded by women, and these were not any women. These were very special women. And of course, you must have heard about the courtesan who owned literary fame, that was Umrao Jan. Her life was recorded in one of the first Urdu novels published in 1899, Umrao Jan Ara, by Mirza Hari Ruzwa, lived from 1857 to 1931. In the English translation by Khushwant Singh and M.A. Hussaini, published in 1870, Umrao Jan informed the author, Mirza Ruzwa, can you guess what this place was? It was here I was to trade my honor for money, for this was the chalk, the prostitute's quarter. And I was at the house where I was to get whatever was due to me from the world, honor and disgrace, fame and notoriety, failure and success. This, I don't know if this is the Umrao Jan that Ruzwa has made world famous. It was called by another Lucknow photographer, Mashkur Dawla, or Mashkur Dawla, photographer in Lucknow. And here you see his emblem, of course, based, of course, on the garter. Many photographers, British photographers, has used this emblem earlier. And here you see a lady, but we don't know if it's a Umrao Jan Ada from Faizabad, because she was abducted from Faizabad, where her father was the gardener in the tomb of the Bahu Begum. And the Bahu Begum was the mother of Asaf, and probably all this I won't repeat. Now, this is the most published, not most published, sorry, that's the thing, it's not published. It's described in all the English guidebooks, described, but it's never photographed. And even our friend Abbas Ali, who has photographed everything. 50 monuments he has photographed. He has not photographed the chalk, but he mentions it. As this quote from Abbas Ali book demonstrates, returning from Husainabad, on the right is the chalk or Great Bazaar. It extends from north to south for about a mile and is entered at both ends by an arched gateway. The north gate is called the Gol Darwaza, the south is known as the Akbari Darwaza. The latter is said to have been in existence when the Emperor Akbar passed through Delhi, etc. Well, of course, in Lucknow, there are buildings of the Akbari period, but we don't see them. So this is one of the entrances, presumably the Gol Darwaza, because Gol means round also. And this is the so-called Akbari Darwaza from within and from without. Oh, so our friend Abbas Ali, well, he didn't photograph the working place of these ladies, but he photographed the ladies themselves. And he published a book. I mean, it has no author, but we all suggest it was him. It's called The Beauties of Lucknow. 24 selected photographed portraits of the most celebrated and popular living histrionic singers, dancing girls, and actresses, the court of Oud and Lucknow, with short explanations. And again, these are actual photographs. They are not lithograph prints, they are actual photographs. And the book is published simultaneously with the other in 1874. So since all the editions with the tipped-in photographs were practically handmade, there are some editions which have a printed title. I mean, it was cut out and then glued after it was printed, etc. So this title says Umrao Jan, dancing girl of Jugna. Of course, she cannot be our Umrao Jan. Our, that means from Mirza Harivat Uruzwa, because she actually came from Faizabad. But here, what you cannot see in this reproduction, here you can see it because I photographed this from the original photograph. This is the coat of arms of Lucknow, but we won't have the time to go more in detail, but you have the two fishes but we have one lady. Her name is given in this book by Abbas Ali, and she is called Abbasi Domni. This is a lady, she is called Abbasi, also it's written Ubasi Domni, but it must be pronounced Abbasi Domni. She is in that book, and she is identifiable. It's not her only photograph, because she reappears here in a sort of Lucknow setting. Because here is a tukdan or spittoon, here is the pandan. On top of the pandan, you cannot see it here, it's the same bird which is on the top of the monument of the tomb of the Bahu Begum. So inside was the pan preparations. And see all these textiles. These were the textiles which were available and were in fashion, at least in the 1870s, because they were so interesting that even Western women already started to collect these textiles. So Lucknow textiles is a chapter in itself. when you see the catalog from 2010, I think it was the exhibition in California. And the same lady, here's from the book of Abbas Ali. And here's the photograph we've seen before. She is in different moods, but she has the same hairstyle and the same necklace. In many cases, the same necklace. I hope it is large enough for you to see. And now we return to the first page of the front page of the Times of Lucknow. There are 4 ladies playing on what looks to be a bed, like the 2 gentlemen who were playing the chess or shatranj before. And you have the water pipes or hubble bubble. And they are supposed to play chopar, or you call it also pachisi, 25 after the greatest throw with dice. But this is, again, it's a photograph, but does it show the reality or does it show the fantasy of the photographer? What did the photographer try to illustrate? These ladies, well, they are not real pachisi players because I know to play this game, so I know this constellation of the playing pins is difficult to imagine. And we have also photographs of chess players, this by, again, by Shepard and Robertson, and this by the gentleman who did the book Delhi, Agra and Rajputana, illustrated by 80 photographs, published in 1865. This is a photograph by Captain Eugene Clutterbuck Impey. So photographed before 1865. And this is Shepard and Robertson photograph, catalog number 1109. So they don't play really the game of pachisi because the board goes up there, and normally the chess figures, they are not as small as we see them there. You can see people playing pachisi even today in Moscow. No problem. And it's really lying here and it's played with cowries, and it's quite a high throw, but not the highest throw. And you see it's used, they're really playing it. And this is a photograph from Satyajit Ray's films, and this was also on the first page. Shatranj ke Khiladi, the chess players, a film about Lucknow, 1856. And here you see how the people for the props in the film were inspired by the Bara Imam Bara. This we have seen exactly in this way before, and they have even got the slams and many other things. But this is a lady of Lucknow, which you can see. I hope she is in Lucknow because it's not 100% sure if it was photographed in Lucknow. But it's one figure which in European would be called the odalisque. But the odalisque looks different. I will show you a Lucknow odalisque very, very briefly before. If this is online, you can see these are all the titles with photographic illustrations of Lucknow monuments, but not one of them shows the chalk, the famous chalk. And even Lowry, a famous photographic studio, all these people, and Lal Chand, 24 views, no chalk. I want to finish with this photograph. This was painted in Lucknow in about 1775, or maybe in Faizabad in 1774. It's signed by a Lucknow artist, and this photograph was also shown in Los Angeles, if I remember well. It's in the Islamic Museum in Berlin. It was collected by another French gentleman, not Claude Martin, but Antoine Polier, a French-speaking, but actually Swiss gentleman, a French-speaking gentleman who brought home to Europe many albums with these paintings done by Lucknow artists. Not all by Lucknow artists, but the border is by the Lucknow artist. And here is the signature. You can't see it now, but it's really by a Lucknow, famous Lucknow artist on whom many books can be written. And this is the end of the news. Oh dear.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you can sit there. Thank you so much, Joachim, for this, which with an amazing number of illustrations, images, and of course, it shows us so many different narratives and which narrative to tell, how to make sense of a place of a city such as Lucknow. We have the story of the Nawab, we have the story of Natal Europeans, we have the story of the Kota, and we have the space of the semi-private space such as the Kota Chalk. I hadn't heard this name before for this, which was also a kind of culture that we discussed in class that was only accessible to a small group of male nobility, and an art form that wasn't shared and wasn't known to others. So I'd love to now ask Rosie to take over. And my question to both of you is, because Rosie, you have written the history of Lucknow, you have focused on people, on Claude Martin, which can become a life's kind of task, right? And we kept on then finding, you know, in 1975, I think, the estate and everything with fascinating details of the objects and household items and so on. So my question to both of you, what to do with images, and you raised so many questions, how authentic are they? Can we use images to understand the historic interior, and how to make sense of the place and how to make sense of the place of Lucknow, given all of these different figures and tangles and histories of all of these participants? Yes, Rosie, thank you.
Yes. I think actually Joachim would be pleasantly surprised if he returns to La Martiniere today, because it has been completely refurbished, and all those statues on the roof, which looks very dull and dirty, are now sparkling clean. And also the interior has been completely renovated too, keeping in those lovely Wedgwood type plaques. And I just wanted to say a couple of things, sort of factual information. You mentioned quite rightly that the building itself is now divided from the lot, the tall tower that actually stood in the River Gumpti. And the reason it was divided was that there were very severe floods in Lucknow in the late 1970s. And the division is actually a bund, not a dam, and it goes right around Lucknow. It was a flood prevention measure. And it's just very unfortunate that it didn't actually go behind the lot, because the lot and the building are integral to each other. And there is perhaps a dream among La Martiniere scholars and teachers that one day that bund will actually be moved behind the lot and reintegrate them, which obviously would be desirable. And you mentioned the names of the buildings, Constantia e Labore, or rather Labore e Constantia, is actually a Freemasons motto. It turns up in England in the 17th century. And Martin was a Freemason. This is one of the ways in which he rose to prominence, by meeting other Masons. And he actually describes the building as a Freemason's lodge, which is why he has that motto, Labore e Constantia, engraved across it. And so the main building itself is known as Constantia. But if you look at the whole thing and those wings which were added in the 1840s, it's referred to as La Martiniere. So the original building is Constantia. I don't think there was very much more I wanted to say. It's actually Thomas Barker is the name of the artist of the relief of Lucknow, not Baker. But it was a fascinating talk, and it's really good to see interiors of Lucknow and those sort of splendid glass chandeliers and mirrors. And I have to say that Claude Martin was a great man for chandeliers and mirrors too. So whether he's copying what he sees in Lucknow or the Nawabs are copying what they see at La Martiniere. But Martin's chandeliers were so famous that on his death, they were auctioned, and they're now in Government House, Raj Bhawan in Kolkata. You can actually see them there, something that belonged to Martin. And possibly talking about statues, Martin, as you rightly pointed out, was very, very keen on statues. They adorn La Martiniere. And this was actually copied by some of the later Nawabs. You didn't mention Kaiserbagh in much detail, but when we look at early photographs of Kaiserbagh, there were a lot of statues around the roofs. And of course, strictly speaking, Muslims shouldn't have that kind of imagery, but nevertheless, they did. They copied it. Most of them have gone now. But, no, all I can say is a fascinating talk, and thank you very much indeed.
No, I just wanted to add, yeah, I'm sorry for Barker and Baker. It has a very simple reason. I had to read it from a very, very small screen.
Oh.
Because I have it here all on paper, but that takes too much time to find out where am I now. And no, of course it's Barker, and it's really his signature on this proof print. Yeah, no, but thanks for pointing this out. That was, of course, not necessarily correct. How did you like the photographs of by Mashkurat Uddaula and Abbas Ali showing these professional ladies?
They're very interesting. And one of the comments in the chat box was about their unique hairstyles. And this seems to be a style that came into fashion about 1850, because if we look at some of the photographs and paintings of the last Nawab, Wajid Ali Shah, we can see that his ladies have that peculiar kind of hair that comes down like that and then curves around again. And it's fascinating to see that it's then adopted by some of these ladies in Chowk. So we can actually trace it from these early paintings of Wajid Ali Shah's time. They're lovely photographs, they really are.
Well, it's really unfortunate that compared to the amount of paintings which must have been there, today we have so very few. There are not many, well, I haven't come across many photographs showing interiors or portraits. There are some, of course, which are reproduced every now and then, which we have in the British Library, etc. But apart from these, there are only very, very few. How do you explain that? They must have ordered plenty of these paintings.
There was, and it's fairly easily explained that when the British recaptured the city of Lucknow in March 1858, it was recaptured by the East India Company armies, the British armies, the Gurkhas and the Sikhs. There was looting that went on for 2 days and 2 nights of the palaces, particularly the Kaiserbagh Palace. And the idea was that the soldiers who'd actually fought to recapture Lucknow were being rewarded in a way, if you like. And you mentioned W.H. Russell, the Times correspondent, and he describes the looting of Kaiserbagh. He said men are staggering out with jewels, with mirrors, with paintings. What they can't carry, they smashed. And he said that they were actually drunk with plunder. And unfortunately, that's what happened to a lot of the items. One thing that was rescued is quite interesting, and that's a manuscript called the Ishqnama, which was looted and presented to Sir John Lawrence, who in turn presented it to Queen Victoria. So that was saved, and we know that it was taken exactly from the palace. But there's so much more that was looted, that was simply destroyed. And it's interesting that you mentioned that Los Angeles exhibition. Not a single item came from Lucknow itself, not one single item, because what was saved is in museums in America, in Europe, in Britain. What I also thought was interesting, that not one member of the Ovid royal family were invited to the exhibition either. I did actually point this out, that there are descendants, direct descendants of Wajid Ali Shah living in Calcutta, and they were not invited to the exhibition.
Well, but there are still quite a few paintings in the picture gallery of Lucknow. I had shown just one of them.
Yes, that's correct. And they're very interesting. Not all of them are contemporary, but there are some really interesting small paintings that I got photographed quite some years ago. I got someone to take them down off the walls and to photograph them. And there's some very nice little paintings there, including one of Wajid Ali Shah celebrating the spring festival, Basant, and he's on a barge surrounded by all of his parties. And we must give him credit that he enjoyed Hindu festivals as much as Muslims ones. And for that, he is remembered, among other things.
Well, you were very lucky that they have removed the glass, because I had to photograph them through the glass.
I know it's never easy trying to photograph anything in Lucknow, but you did very well. I really enjoyed seeing your pictures.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more questions from the audience or from our students? Yes, you have a question, please.
So yeah, we discussed in class that it's very rare for Indian painters to sign on the papers. Like it's very rare for to find Indian paintings with sign, which are signed.
Let me talk also about a much earlier period.
Now, it's quite correct that not many paintings are signed, and there is a long discussion about why not and why were earlier paintings signed. And the first question is, could the artist actually write? That they were very good painters or artists didn't necessarily mean that they could write, but what is said about the early period, that was the signature, or what we supposed to be a signature, was necessary because according to the work of the artist he was paid. Maybe true or not. But in the case of some of these Lucknow painters, like the son of Gangaram, etc., where I have shown these paintings, there are actually quite a few miniatures, but not so many people worked on these. I mean, miniatures with signatures. What we think are, what we're supposed to be, are actually signatures. There's a name. It says Amal-e, then comes the name. We think they are signatures, but if they were really signed by the artist or ascribed by the accountant, we should be do more research. But signatures are there. And another thing which is unmistakable as a tool is the eye. You see the style of the artist, and it's not necessary that he signs each of his paintings, or of her paintings. A few lady paintings were there as well, although I don't know any from Lucknow, but from the Mughal court. And then the eye tells you. So.
There was just a comment by Madhu, who said she missed seeing the residency. And of course, that brings me back to my original point. How do we actually make sense of a place? I mean, there's the observatory. I mean, there are countless, buildings that we could talk about. But you made a choice. So I would maybe conclude and ask you by, why did you make the choice that you did?
Well, you have, I missed out, of course, the Kaiserbagh and the Chatter Manzil and all these palaces which were constructed, the facades from others. I have seen all of them, I have photographed all of them, and I have the earlier photographs. But the selection was, you saw the different imambaras, you saw the different styles, and also the different lamps. And you saw the Dilkusha Koti, which when I was there was in ruins. You saw the Martinia or the Constantia, the nucleus of it. as I have seen it, and I have seen the later photographs, as I have mentioned at the beginning. They were published in some journal. The interior restoration of the house of Claude Martin. So I wanted to have one of everything, so to say. For the Husseinabad, for me, was the reason not only of the interior, etc., but also all the outside figures. We have their photographs, and I know from other places in South Asia and Southeast Asia that they are in some museums. For instance, about Calcutta or about Bombay, there were so many figures of the British period which were removed, but which, for whatever reason, but which are still stored in some museums. And this applies to many places in Southeast Asia where we have the photographs, but then it even applies to cities like Bangkok, where on the old photograph we have things which are now in museums. And that's where I've shown them, because I thought maybe somebody of you or Rosie knows, oh, I have seen them in this go down, or maybe they were certainly not, did not fall victim to the plunder, because they were still there in the 1870s and later. So it makes no sense to destroy them. So I think they were brought to some safer place, but it's too expensive to restore them and to reinstall them at the actual place. It's my theory. Maybe true or not.
And just to a little aside, that's something we are also doing in this class, where we are looking at the buildings that are very often just empty today. We are trying to find and locate the objects associated with the buildings or particular rooms that are now spread all over the world in various museums. So we are kind of interested in this, but within the scope of the class at the moment. Yeah, with this, unless, is there any more questions from the audience? Because I can't see it. Nothing. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. And Rosie, thank you so much. And we are awaiting your next talk, a standalone talk in the near future. And hope to see you in India next week or thereafter. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
So thank you, students, and some newcomers that we had today, those who missed your other classes. Thank you very much for coming. If you would like to ask Professor about some questions,